The series itself deals with topics around cyberbullying as well as showing an arrest process and things of that nature. So if these kind of things may be upsetting to you, or anything else you may know that the series includes, please do not watch. The short version is my views matter less than your well-being. Self-care is very important. So like I say, if any of this may upset you, please don't watch. But for those who wish to continue, let us talk about Adolescence. Created and written by Jack Thorne and Stephen Graham, the latter of which also stars alongside Ashley Walters, Owen Cooper, and Erin Doherty. And I want to do something a bit light before we start. And also tell you up front that I'm talking about all 4 episodes in this one video. I don't want to be talking about this for the next month, let's be honest, so it may run a little longer, but it's because I want to do it that way. But yeah, the funny story to start, I pretty much went in knowing that there was a kid who'd been arrested, Stephen Graham was in it, and that was about it. So about 15 minutes or so into the first episode, I'm like, feels like there's been no cuts yet. I haven't seen a single split between a scene. And my partner Chandler goes, yeah, that's the point. This is meant to be done in one continuous take. All 4 episodes follow that process, or that sort of artistic style. So the first episode opens with the arrest of Jamie, a 13-year-old boy who is absolutely terrified. And Owen Cooper sells that very well. He does so well in this episode, and I will talk more about later episodes where that changes. But this episode, he is that terrified, I just want to go home, I don't know why I'm here, I haven't done anything. His family also absolutely terrified, understandably. In this country, people coming into your house with guns is a very, very, very unusual circumstance that no one expects to happen. So when it's armed police with assault rifles right into the face of your 13-year-old child, you're gonna be a bit distressed, distraught, upset. But he's taken in and processed. I'm going to do a bit of self-disclosure here, so obviously not too much. Do want to keep some secrets. But if, it happens a lot. People are accused of a crime, the police can't rule them out through other means, so they bring them in, properly arrest them, always on suspicion, for questioning, and then sometimes, the crime itself, the offence is less severe than originally thought, or you're not the person they're looking for, or some other reason. So just being arrested isn't necessarily the worst thing. But I, like so many of us probably, have been in Jamie's shoes to a degree. I wasn't a teenager at the time, but with my undiagnosed at that time autism, plus mental health issues, I felt the same kind of fear, I'm sure, that Jamie would have felt in this situation. Even watching this episode, I was in a constant state of anxiety, but I wanted to continue watching, because the story itself, the mystery, gripped me. But I was sat there, feeling every moment of terror, that uncomfortability. I mean, I didn't have a nurse with me, I had a doctor assess my mental fitness. I actually had that happen. And, I didn't have an appropriate adult because I was an adult on paper. So I didn't even have someone there to take some of the strain off. I mean, I had a duty solicitor, but that was it. But what I like about this is it's very realistic. That process is very realistic. I believed in it, which is why that anxiety was there. If it didn't feel right, I wouldn't have felt it. If it was, like overblown or, like I say, unrealistic portrayal, I wouldn't have felt that. So it sold that really well. It also sells the family sat in the room of just what's going on with our child/brother. And Stephen Graham is amazing in this. There is a scene that is very uncomfortable to watch for a lot of reasons, the strip search. We don't see it, obviously, because Jamie's 13. I don't know how old Owen is, but still, it's portraying a minor. Let's not dwell on that too much, shall we? We have to sort of see it through another angle. We still want to be in the room because they want to show how uncomfortable and intrusive this is. So how do you get around that? And you can't cut away because it's a one continuous take. So we zoom in on Stephen Graham, on Eddie's face. And I'm a fan of cinema therapy. There's a lot of stuff that I'd love to talk about, like psychologically, but either they've already done it or they'll probably do it in the future. So I don't want to tread on their toes. But still, Alan Seawright, the director of the two, has often said the best, most convincing special effects that you can ever put on film is this. Not specifically this, I don't think my face is that good, but the human face. If you can express and you tell everything that you're feeling in that scene, that is miles better than even the best CGI could ever do for convincing people of something. And Stephen Graham, I've seen it in a few things, he's a master of that constrained, sometimes barely, but constrained rage in this situation when he's staring at his child being observed in ridiculous detail by police officers. He even says, would you want your 13-year-old being looked at by strange men in, when nude? I don't think anyone would, let's be honest. And from how it's portrayed, obviously it's all done in, them talking about, like, giving him instructions. They're not touching him, they're making him sort of move things out of the way to show there's nothing hidden. But it's still very uncomfortable, and like I say, that zoom in, that close shot on Stephen Graham's face just says everything that it needs to in that scene. An interesting bit of that as well, the solicitor in the room, he's turned away, so he's not looking at the child because he shouldn't. The nurse is turned away, which is unusual in my mind. I think someone medically qualified observing makes more sense, but I don't know how it's done. I don't know how realistic that is. It's not something I experienced, so I'll let that one slide. But yeah, that whole first episode in the police station just builds this tension. But we have Ashley Walters as a very, very kind, very compassionate D.I. Bascom. He's got a kid himself who actually, it seems, goes to the same school. So there's this, there's this attachment to the case that he has. But he never, well, I won't say never, but until the end, there is no real pressure. He's always very much like, okay, Jamie, what can we do to help you? Like, we're going to do this, explaining it, being very considerate, kind, compassionate, soft. But once he's showing the evidence, the CCTV, etc., the hardness comes out a bit more. And there's a great moment as well, like towards the end. Eddie is asking Jamie, just tell me. If you did it, tell me now. And he says, no, I didn't do it. And then at the end, like all this evidence seems to show it. And Stephen Graham breaks down. I'm saying that. It's Stephen Graham breaks down. He's just unable to deal with the fact that his kids possibly lied to him. Once he's seen all that evidence, he can't. He's just turning away from him. It's this revulsion. And that first episode was... I was going to make this video just on that first episode if I had to, if the rest of it just fell off. The second episode didn't do as much for me. It was more about the fact-finding at the school and learning that the cyberbullying angle was there. Like, Katie didn't really think much of Jamie and possibly his other friends. They were seen as very much like the incel types and very much into the Andrew Tate, Red Pill, all that stuff. And I think one of the most important things that I got from that was, and it's something I've been learning about, this whole idea of like children, teenagers, adolescents have slang. Like, you probably remember when you were a teen, or you may be one now, and you'll say things and people older than you wouldn't get it because you've created this sort of new slang, this new language for your age range, for your environment, whatever it may be. And the fact that, we have this police officer's son teaching him what the emojis mean, because I use emojis kind of like, well, it's a smiling face, so I'm saying I'm smiling, but that might... Apparently, according to this, I've told so many people I'm horny, because that's what the purple heart is meant to be. I've done it because I like the colour purple. So I feel really uncomfortable right now, knowing that information. I haven't done it to any children, though. I've done it to adults, and maybe, because we're all out of the loop. I don't know if this is genuinely how it's done. I don't know if all this emoji code is correct. Again, I haven't looked into that. It's not really my focus for this. That's one thing I did like about the second episode, but the rest of it was kind of a bit lackluster. Generally, it was like, well, it's just furthering the story, giving us some backstory. Not that it didn't matter, but, it didn't add enough that I thought was worth dwelling on too long. But the third episode was also one I went, oh, I need to talk about this. The first one was kind of like, I probably should. Third one was, I need to. And this is where Erin Doherty just blows the doors off the performance here. As well as Omen Cooper. They are the focus for the majority of this, and I love it when this kind of thing happens. If you've got two characters that are the main focus, spend most of your time with them. Especially in something like this that is that one take. We're meant to be in this world for that 50 to an hour run. I think some of the episodes are a little over. But that kind of, 50, 60 something minutes. And those two in a room, occasionally broken up by guards coming in, etc., or her going out to grab a drink, is amazing. We see the relationship they've already built, because this is not their first session together. We see evidence of that. We weren't present for it. We know it exists because it's portrayed so well. It's written and performed very well. We know the dynamic. But we see At the beginning, just like, like, we see the Jamie we've seen. Just I just want to be out of here, I can't be done. But there are elements where, and again, using my sort of psychological knowledge, I don't know why I phrased it that way, but my psychological knowledge and counselling knowledge, I'm kind of looking at the fact that he's boundary testing. He's pushing her. What can he get away with? But also when things are getting too raw, his defense mechanism comes in, and that defense mechanism is to attack, ironically. More of an attack mechanism, it feels, but it is a defense mechanism. He's not wanting to let her delve deep, so he suddenly just gets very aggressive. And she weathers it, because she's a forensic psychologist who does this a lot, clearly. She is there to try and figure out who he is. It's a pre-sentence report to understand, does he know what he's done? What's his take on masculinity and things like that, now that we're aware that that might be a factor. And he's constantly pushing. Another element that's interesting because of that incel culture, etc., women just, the 80-20 rule, all that kind of stuff. He's apparently been speaking to another psychologist who is a male. And he's constantly saying, well, he asked questions like this, he did this, almost painting the male one as better, as superior, because he just asked me things. You're sat there just having a chat with me. What's the point of that? And it's different stuff, like different psychological techniques at play. They're both probably doing the same job, but maybe she's come from a more soft skills focused angle. So she isn't there like question. She's let it flow a bit more. Which, I appreciate that technique. But even though, she goes out the room and she kind of takes time, she observes him, unknown through the cameras, tries to figure out how she can leverage, but, she starts probing a bit more and it starts getting very uncomfortable for her. And she just kind of wraps it up. She closes down. Her defense mechanism comes into play. Her self-protection. Like, no, we're done. I've got everything I need. I won't be seeing you again. This is the end. But I think because of Jamie's need to have control, to assert dominance, he didn't say that they're over, she did, and how dare she? Again, that might come into this Andrew Tate-styled mindset that he's been exposed to. But the end shot, he's taken away, yelling and screaming, like, how dare you kind of, again, take control away from him. It's obviously a big thing. It's possibly a motivator for Katie's murder. We don't know. It's very likely. But she cries. She breaks down once he's out of the room. She's maintained composure. And I think half of her going, that's it, we're done, no more sessions, was there is a darkness in this child that I can see there, and that is probably a motivating factor. That's probably what's going to be on a report. She can't just say this is a confused 13-year-old, didn't know what he was doing. She can see something underneath it all. And like I say, in that moment where she's unobserved, she's on her own, she sheds the tears. And I was kind of with her. And then the final episode. I want to say like the lighter episode in a way, but I think really the lightest one was probably the second. Even though we got some of those reveals, it was still a lot. It didn't feel like it was more as impactful. But the fourth one actually was quite impactful. There was a heaviness to it, even though they were just trying to enjoy Eddie's birthday. Going out on the day, but then obviously someone's painted his van and used the word nonce, even though it's nothing to do with this. I mean, technically, what nonce specifically means is about a specific classification of prisoners. It's often used with minor-related crimes, should we say. If they're using it in that context, I mean, yes, he's a minor, but it's not that he's done anything that would normally link to the word nonce in most people's knowledge, I guess, in this country. I don't know if nonce travels across the pond, so... But that's basically what it links to. They can't get away from this, and there's a constant thread of, we should move, but we've got lives here. Why should we have to move? Because people can't just deal with the fact that, our child did a thing. It doesn't mean we did anything. We're not agreeing that that was a good thing to do, etc. People are just sometimes awful. So there is that reluctance to let them win, almost, let them be taken down. But a call comes in and, he discusses it and it's like, yeah, I'm going to take a guilty plea. I don't know, again, we don't have the information of whether he genuinely says, okay, yeah, fine, I did it. Whether his solicitor has kind of said, there's not much evidence against you. If it goes to trial, you're going to struggle. You might get a lenient sentence if you plead guilty now. You won't have to go through a trial. The judge will just give you a sentence. again, there's all these things that we don't know, and that's what I love about it. There's still mystery. Even though we know vaguely what happens and probably who did it and likely reasons why, it's all probably, likely, maybe. But there's a moment where Eddie breaks down, like, in tears, like full-on ugly crying, as I would call it. And I'm just there in tears myself at the end of the episode. I'm just there, just along for the ride. And again, that's why I wanted to talk about this series. Even the last episode, where it was just like, let's try and enjoy a birthday, it gave us a lot of heavy moments. Like I say, even the least important in my mind, you know, the second episode, it still had moments that added to it. But overall, these 4 episodes have just been an amazing tour de force. I'm going to use that term. It is what it is. It's from the directing, because I didn't even mention Philip Barantini, the director, you know, having to figure out how these shots are going to work, sell all of these shots as a one take, even if he's had to put like contingencies in just in case, you know, all of this has had to be worked out, and obviously the cinematographer alongside that to make sure the shots work when you're flowing between them. You can't just reset the lighting for the next scene. You've got to make sure that it works as you're going through. The writing, like, I want to see more from Thorne and Graham. Even if Stephen Graham has to be in it, you know, that's part of the criteria, because I've enjoyed watching Stephen Graham in this. But everyone in this has done a really amazing job from the top down. And I really want more. My emotions, if you will, my well-being probably doesn't want too much more like this, but I'd be willing to tolerate the uncomfortability. So Adolescence is definitely worth a watch. It's something that I'm glad I didn't know anything going in, and whilst it has been difficult in places, it's been rewarding, and I can't recommend it highly enough. So thank you very much for letting me talk about this, and we'll be back next week with something hopefully a bit lighter. I'll plan something that be a bit of a nice palate cleanser, I think, for us. But until then, as always, thank you for watching, and take care.